There are people who carry a fire inside them, but no one ever tells them what it costs to keep it burning. Franz Kafka was one of them, and that fire did not warm him. It burned him from the inside out. He didn't suffer from a lack of talent. He suffered from having too much of it, and from the devastating belief that it was never enough. Kafka didn't fear failure. He feared exposure. He feared that if people truly saw what he created, they'd confirm the one thing he already believed about himself, that he was never good enough to exist in this world. He once wrote, "I write differently than I speak. I speak differently than I think think differently than I should think." And so it all continues, into the deepest darkness. That darkness wasn't metaphor, it was his mind. And it's the same darkness many of us walk through, every day, quietly, invisibly, pretending we don't hear the voice that says, "You're not enough." Kafka wrote obsessively, desperately, not because he wanted to create, but because he didn't know how to survive otherwise. He was drowning in silence, and writing was his way of screaming underwater. But here's the tragedy that destroys most brilliant minds. The more he wrote, the more he hated what he wrote. The closer he got to truth, the more unworthy he felt to tell it. His father wanted him to be successful. Kafka wanted to disappear. He studied law to obey, but he wrote in secret to breathe. That inner conflict between obligation and obsession, between duty and soul, it tore him open. He described himself not as a man, but as a cage searching for a bird. And here's the unbearable irony. While millions today find meaning in his words, Kafka died believing they weren't worth reading. He asked his closest friend, Max Brod, to burn all of his unpublished work, to erase him, to silence what had taken him a lifetime to say why. Because genius doesn't always come with confidence. Sometimes it comes with unbearable clarity, and the clearer you see the world, the more you realize you'll never be able to explain it fully. The more you try to capture truth, the more it slips between your fingers. Kafka wasn't afraid of being misunderstood. He was afraid of being understood, and still being rejected. How many of us live in that fear? How many of us destroy our own voices before anyone else gets the chance? How many masterpieces have died in drawers, not because they weren't good, but because their creators believed they weren't worthy? Maybe you're carrying something like that now. A story, a sound, an idea, something wild, something honest, something yours. And maybe you've already convinced yourself that the world wouldn't care, that no one wants to hear what you have to say. But here's the thing, Kafka didn't live long enough to learn. You don't need permission to exist. You never did. Kafka wasn't just a writer, he was a confessor of human anguish. Not the loud kind, the silent, suffocating kind. He lived with a guilt that had no name, a guilt that wasn't tied to an action or a crime, but simply to being. This is the core of his writing, the unbearable weight of existing in a world that never asked for you. His characters are not heroes, they are victims of systems they don't understand, of punishments they don't deserve, of expectations they can never meet. Sound familiar? In the trial, Joseph K. is arrested and prosecuted, but no one tells him why. No one gives him a charge. He's guilty not because of something he did, but because he exists within a system where guilt is the default state. Kafka understood that deeply. He didn't feel guilty for his actions. He felt guilty for his thoughts, for his desires, for his contradictions, for failing to live up to an ideal that no human could meet, yet that he still demanded of himself. This isn't just a psychological insight, it's a spiritual crisis. Kafka believed that life itself was a kind of tribunal, and the soul was always on trial, not judged by others, but by an internal voice that never rests. That voice, the inner critic, is the real antagonist in Kafka's world, and in ours. He wrote, "My talent for portraying my dreamlike inner life has thrust all other matters into the background." He didn't just describe guilt, he breathed it. The tragedy is, Kafka's writing was a mirror, but he never dared look into it. He never saw what others would see one day, that his pain was not a flaw, but a key to understanding why so many people feel like strangers in their own lives, why so many live under invisible sentences, why so many create in silence and die unheard. He wasn't telling stories, he was decoding the human soul, but to him it never felt like enough. And isn't that what kills most of us, quietly? Not failure, but the voice that says, you could have done more, you should have been more, you are not enough. Kafka turned that voice into literature, but the voice never stopped whispering back. He wrote, all I am is literature, and I am not even that. And maybe, just maybe, that line echoes more truth than he could bear. Kafka once wrote, writing is a form of prayer, but what kind of prayer never gets answered? What kind of God listens and never speaks? For Kafka, that was the unbearable tension, to reach upward with all your soul and be met with silence. Not rejection, not condemnation, just ... nothing. No signs, no comfort. Only the sound of your own voice echoing back at you, distorted, doubtful, desperate. This is where Kafka's spiritual crisis becomes universal, because every one of us, at some point, will ask, is anyone listening? Is the suffering random, or does it mean something? Is the silence proof that no one is there, or that someone is there, but refuses to speak? Kafka didn't deny the existence of something higher, but he refused to pretend it was loving, clear, or fair. His universe was structured like a divine bureaucracy. You can feel its weight, but you never reach the top floor. You never find the door that leads to understanding, and even if you do, it's locked. He wrote of a belief, not in God, but in the guilt before God. Let that settle. He didn't need proof of God's presence. The pain was enough. He saw life not as a journey towards salvation, but as a long, winding line in front of an office that never opens. And still, he waited. Still, he wrote. Still, he cried out, not because he believed someone would answer, but because not crying out would mean surrender. And that's the darkest part of Kafka's brilliance. He didn't offer hope, he offered truth, a truth that many cannot face. The truth that faith without response isn't strength, it's madness. That creation without recognition is martyrdom. That talent without self-worth is a slow death. And yet, he chose it. Kafka chose to suffer through creation, to pour his soul into pages he believed no one would read, to keep writing, even when the silence screamed louder than any applause ever could. He wrote for the same reason many of us keep breathing, not because we believe things will get better, but because the alternative is even darker. Because some people don't write to be understood, they write to survive themselves. So what do you do when your own mind is your greatest enemy? What do you do when your talent hurts more than it heals? When every time you try to create, a voice inside whispers, this isn't good enough. You aren't good enough. Most people stop. They hide. They shrink. They wait for perfection, a perfection that never comes. And they die with stories untold, songs unsung, art unmade. But Kafka didn't stop. Not because he believed in himself, but because he couldn't help it. Because the words needed to come out, even if they killed him slowly. He once said, a book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. And he used that axe on himself, over and over again. Every paragraph he wrote cracked another piece of his soul open, and the cold never truly melted. But in that breaking, he made space for us. Space for those who also feel invisible, inadequate, paralyzed by doubt, chained by the silence that surrounds their pain. Kafka gave voice to that silence, not by defeating it, but by naming it. He showed us that it's possible to keep moving through the fog, to keep creating through the fear, to keep breathing even when life feels like a sentence with no punctuation. And maybe that's the kind of heroism we need now. Not perfection, not clarity, but the courage to keep showing up, to keep expressing, to keep being, even when you feel like nothing at all. Because here's the truth, Kafka didn't need to be understood in his time, because his time was never going to understand him. Some souls don't belong to the present. They're born as echoes of a deeper truth, and that truth takes time to be heard. Maybe you're one of those souls. Maybe you're not meant to fit in. Maybe you're meant to disturb the comfort, to ask the impossible questions, to break the frozen sea in others, not with answers, but with the raw, honest, trembling sound of your own voice. Kafka never got to see the impact of his words. He died thinking he failed, and yet his failure became our survival. His silence became our language. His cage became our compass. So now I ask you, what are you not saying because you're afraid it won't be perfect? What are you hiding because someone once made you believe your voice didn't matter? What truth inside you have you buried so deep you forgot it was even yours? Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for exactly the thing you're afraid to share. Not something polished, not something flawless, just something real. So write it, say it, sing it, draw it, live it, not to be remembered, not to be loved, but because it's the only way to survive yourself. The silence doesn't have to win, not this time.